Welcome back to the Badass Literature Society, where badasses come together to rate and review novels recommended by you. Hi, I'm Michael.
This is Barbara.
And this month we read They Bloom at Night by Trang Thanh Tran. She's a Vietnamese-American writer telling all stories scary, otherworldly, and emotional. She grew up in a big family in Philadelphia, but now calls the South home. When not writing, they're busy trying new food and watching too many zombie movies. Their debut, She Is a Haunting, was an instant New York Times and indie bestseller. You could find them on Twitter at their handle @NVTran. Barbara, will you tell us a little bit about this book?
Sure. This was originally published on March 4th of 2025. The genre is considered horror, YA, and fantasy. It is 262 pages, and currently it has a 3.47 on Goodreads, 3.6 on Amazon, and 3.47 on Fable. It has been nominated for Barnes & Noble's Children and YA Book Award for Young Adult in 2025. It has not won any awards at the time of this recording. And we think it's important for readers to know what, if any, representation is in the books we read. So for this book, there are main and supporting BIPOC characters, main and supporting LGBTQ plus characters, and main and supporting characters with disabilities.
Thank you. And since Lauren is out for the next few months, I'm going to do the back of the book. There have always been monsters all around us. Since the hurricane, the town of Mercy, Louisiana has been overtaken by a strange red algae bloom. Noon and her mother have carved out a life in the wreckage, trawling for mutated wildlife that lurks in the water and trading it to the corrupt harbormaster. When she's focused on survival, Noon doesn't have to cope with what happened to her at the Cove or the monster itching at her skin. Mercy has never been a safe place, but it's getting worse. People are disappearing, and the only clues as to why are whispers of underwater shadows and warnings to never answer the knocks that come at night. When the harbormaster demands she capture the creature that's been drowning residents, Noon finds a reluctant ally in his daughter, Covey. And as the next storm approaches, the two set off to find what's haunting Mercy. After all, Noon is no stranger to monsters. So, what did you think, about They Bloom at Night? And remember, no spoilers.
I really enjoyed the book. I read their previous book. I forgot because I'm bad at titles, but it was their...
She Is a Haunting.
She Is a Haunting, yes.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that book, and so I was excited for this one. And overall, I say I really enjoyed it. I like how it's a monster book, but like the monsters aren't... I mean, there are monsters, but the real monsters are not the friends we made along the way. Quite the opposite. Funny. It's just the ugly side of humans, essentially. And generational trauma. So
the monster that haunts us all.
Yeah, right? Generational trauma. Love that for all of us. But no, I really enjoyed it overall. I think it's an interesting way of showing all of this stuff within the horror genre and the monster genre, I feel like. I thought that was a really cool way that they did that.
Well, Barbara, now that you've said that, I think that you have to write a horror book where the tagline is, "The monsters are the friends."
I mean, that would be a good book.
Very entertaining.
Although I like found family tropes. And this had plenty of that, so.
Yeah, found family plus monsters. I mean, it could be good.
Uh-huh.
Your future novel. Look for it on
get on right
2028.
Yep. Watch out, bookstores.
So I also really liked the book. It was a very creepy story in a very creepy world that had some real grounding in it as well that made it really interesting. Like Barbara mentioned, the real monsters are family trauma and all these other things that are happening to real people. It was really short, which I also enjoyed. But my only thing that I guess, and Barbara and I talked about this on and off, it sometimes didn't feel like a YA novel, even though it's marketed as a YA novel and sold in the YA section. I think if they were to make a movie of this book and it was exactly like the book, like line for line, it would be an R-rated movie, which in my mind, if the movie is going to be R-rated, it's probably not a YA book.
I feel like that's different because they're completely different mediums. Because if you look at Hunger Games, if they made it true to the book, would have been an R-rated movie.
That's true. So it just depends, I guess.
It's a older young adult, like 16, 17,
I guess an R-rated movie is technically for older young adults.
Right, I was going to say R-rated you can watch when you're 17. This is literally that right there. So you're wrong.
True. All right, fair enough. So, like always, we're not going to go into our individual ratings for now. Have to wait till the end for that. But our group score for this one was a 7.5 out of 10. Which, if you could do basic math, since there's only two of us, you could probably figure out. Anyway,
Not really.
would
There's
you?
different combinations.
True.
We could have both given it a 7.5.
That's true. We could have.
Mm.
Very true. So, would you recommend this book? I think so. I think that with the caveat that if you're someone who maybe really doesn't like body horror, this is not the book for you because it's got some pretty grotesque body horror in it. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think it's a really good story. I think it's pretty easily digestible. It is pretty short, so if you're looking for something to knock out on like a travel day or something, I think that I really would recommend it to most people.
Yeah, I would echo that. I feel like if you don't like the horror genre and you don't like that type of style of book, I don't think this would be for you. I think you might have a hard time reading this. It's not scary in the like jump scare sense of horror, but I feel like with books that's not really a thing. Like
Well, you
the
never been jump
it's
scared by a book before? That's never happened to
no.
you? Oh,
No. 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 It's more of like how vivid can you paint a picture in your mind when you're reading these novels? So if you're one of those people who can really vividly see this and you're not a fan of horror, I would suggest not reading this, but I think you'd be missing out on a really important book because this does deal with generational trauma. This does deal with the expectations of what parents put on children, and I think it does a very good job of that. This does deal with just a not like immigrants, and dealing with a world that isn't always nice to them. So I think right now that's a very important point of view to get. I think you should definitely be broadening your readings that you're doing to encompass other people's walk of life, to just kind of understand what other people go through. And so yeah, but like I said, this book has all of that in a literally a monster. This is definitely a monster book. Their first book was a haunted house book. This is a monster book. And I'm trying to think if I don't normally when I read books, I tend to gravitate towards more of like the haunted house type themes, not really like the monster. Like normally monsters, I read more of like vampires and stuff like that. But I really enjoyed this one with that aspect of it. I don't know if that's kind of spoiler. I mean, it was kind of a given with the back of the book, with like the creepy algae. But anywho, yes, I would recommend it for the most part, except if you just really don't like the horror genre, in which case like this isn't the book for you. Really, like it might be a little too much for you.
I will quickly add that this book. So I want to read the other book now that you read, Barbara, because I really enjoyed her writing in this one. And I know you already own that one, so that makes it easy for me. But what drew me to this book, it was 100% the cover. And so I just wanted to give a quick shout out to Elena Maski, who did the cover for this book. It's both like beautiful and haunting at the same time, and it immediately made me want to read the book, knowing nothing about the book. Like when we did our episode where we picked books we were excited for, this was one for me that I picked, and then
Mm-hmm.
Barbara pointed out, like, well, do you even know who that author is? Like, I have her other book, and I was like, nope, just thought the cover looked really cool, and the little blip that I read about the story sounded creepy as hell. Cover for this one is awesome. Definitely recommend you look it up if you're sitting there listening. All right, for those of you leaving us at this point, don't forget to give us a rating if you like our show, and make sure you're following us on both Facebook and Instagram and Goodreads now. Our handle is @BadassLitPod. We would love to hear from you. If you've got a book you want us to read, please let us know. Now, before we switch to the next section, Barbara is going to give us a short preview of our next episode. Next month, we are reading The Devils by Joe Abercrombie.
Holy work sometimes requires unholy deeds. Brother Diaz has been summoned to the sacred city, where he is certain a commendation and grand holy assignment awaits him. But his new flock is made up of unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. And the mission he is tasked with will require bloody measures from them all in order to achieve its righteous ends. Elves lurk at our borders and hunger for our flesh, while greedy princes care for nothing but their own ambitions and comfort. With a hellish journey before him, it's a good thing Brother Diaz has the devils on his side.
Very excited for this book. I love Joe Abercrombie. It's going to be dark as hell, I feel like. We'll see. No pun intended.
Right on December. What a great book to celebrate that.
A very violent, dark fantasy for the holidays.
Yeah.
Remember, the second part of this episode is going to be an in-depth look at They Bloom at Night. So if you do want to read it and you don't want anything to be spoiled, stop listening now and come back when you finish the book.
Nom Nom is fresh dog food made by real people who really care. They're purposeful and enthusiastic about giving your dog the best food for them and their health, so they can thrive and be their best. Nom Nom delivers fresh food made with whole ingredients backed by veterinary science. And science tells us that dog health starts in the bowl, so improving their diet is one of the best ways to help them live a long, happy life. All you have to do is order, pour, and serve. Barbara and I have 2 dogs, Luna, a husky, and Quinny, a Shih Tzu mix. Our 2 dogs love the beef mash recipe, but to be honest, I'd say Quinny's favorite is the turkey fare. She drools when that comes out of the fridge. Yes, I know, Luna. I'm going to tell them about that right now. Luna is an extremely picky eater and always has been. She usually takes forever to warm up to new food, but not with Nom Nom. She dove in immediately. Both dogs seemed to have more energy, and Luna's stools were no longer soft. Your dog's health starts in the gut. A better diet means softer coats, more energy, better breath, and smaller, more consistent stools. Your dog can't tell you if they're healthy, but you can tell when their health improves. It's the easiest way to take the guesswork out of feeding your dog the best. Nom Nom meals are pre-portioned for your dog's exact caloric needs. Board-certified vet nutritionists are kind of a big deal, and Nom Nom has 2 on staff that work extensively to ensure everything gets sent out is the very best for your dog's livelihood. So how does Nom Nom work? You tell them about your pup, age, breed, weight, allergies, and protein preferences. Then they tailor a specific amount of individually packaged Nom Nom meals and send them straight to you. Store the meals in the freezer or fridge until it's mealtime. They'll give you specific instructions on how to transition your dog from foods like kibble to always fresh Nom Nom for best results. Watch your dog clean their dishes, dance for dinner, and overall thrive. Ready to make the switch to fresh? Order Nom Nom today. Go to a link in the description of this episode and then use our referral code, BADASSLIT. That's BADASSLIT, and get 50% off your first order plus free shipping. Plus, Nom Nom comes with a money-back guarantee. If your dog's tail isn't wagging within 30 days, Nom Nom will refund your first order. No fillers, no nonsense, just Nom Nom.
Now, for those of you sticking around for the spoilers, here we go. So we'll start out how we always start out and figure out who the Badass Character Award goes to. Barbara, who is your nominee?
I feel like there's, one main character in the book because it's Noon's point of view. So I would have to give it to Noon for everything that they went through. It would be Noon. Plus, we spend the most time in their head, and so,
Yeah. Well, pretty much entirely, right? Because it's a single perspective book.
Yes, it's one POV, first person, Noon's point of view.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I think I have to also give it to Noon. She is definitely a badass. I think that when you give someone like you didn't win, but like a special recognition too. I can't remember. There's a term for it. What?
Like a participation trophy?
No, not like that. Like anyway, I'll figure it out later. It doesn't matter right now.
Okay.
Covey, I think, is a close number 2. We learn a lot about Covey later in the book, and she obviously also went through a lot, and I think is also very much a badass.
Yeah, I mean, all the characters are in their own right, except for Covey's dad. He's just a crap person.
He's just an asshole.
Yeah. Everyone
else. Noon, congratulations. You won the Badass Character Award for this book. Speaking of Noon, let's talk about her a little bit, and we'll do our character discussion. Barbara, do you want to talk a little bit about our main character?
Sure. So Noon is, I believe, 17 at this point. Her and her mom have this boat. Her dad and brother died via... I don't know if they died at the same time. I'm assuming so. I'm not, don't remember if that's actually ever been,
No, I think that is. They did. I believe they did die at the same time.
Drowning.
It was in an accident, right?
Yeah. So they in this little, this is a fake town, right? It's not a real town in...
That's a really good question. I assumed it was a fake town, but
Yeah.
there are some strange named towns in the South, so
This
maybe.
is true. So this is the South. They are a Vietnamese family that immigrated to the U.S. I believe it was her grandparents that did. And they've settled here. It starts off with like this terrible storm that brought in this like red algae, and it's pretty much taken over the whole town. Noon and her mom are trying to search for the spirits or this like reincarnation of her brother and her dad, and they are tasked in finding this monster that is taking people during the nighttime. This monster is literally taking people and they're disappearing, and that is Covey's dad who asked them to do that. And Noon is grappling with the fact that she got, so I guess heavy topics are, we're going to talk about heavy topics.
Yeah, those were some trigger warnings, I guess, for some heavy.
Yeah,
heavy
so
stuff.
she got sexually assaulted by this terrible man, and when that happened, her mom prayed to this, I don't know how I pronounce it song, but I'm not sure if that's correct, but like this deity
That's
that
how
they believed.
That's how it was pronounced in the audiobook.
Okay.
So
yeah. And to spare Noon's life, and that's when Noon starts noticing literal changes about their body, and come to find out they are literally turning into what we would call a quote unquote monster, like a like in the definition of the sense of like they're becoming a creature of the water, I guess.
Yeah.
Like gills,
like a creature of the Black Lagoon-esque character.
Yeah,
or
like
a
gills
Loch Ness monster,
and webbed feet and hands for swimming and all this stuff. And God, Noon is such a very complex character. You can't really describe them all in one little bubble. But yeah, that kind of is, and then it's their story about figuring out who they are. In the beginning of the book, she goes by she, her, and then at the end, they, them, I believe. So since I'm not really sure which, I guess we can use both pronouns for Noon, since I don't know, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, I don't think she never really dictated her pronouns, but after putting together the notes for this and doing my research on the author and learning that the author's pronouns are she, they, I thought that maybe Noon's pronouns
right. That's what I'm saying. Like, they. So she, they. So
like this is reflective, maybe in some ways of
right.
The author. Yeah.
So yeah, it's Noon's a very complex character. They're constantly questioning who they are and how they fit in society, and they never felt comfortable, and they're literally never felt comfortable in their own skin. And well, there's this really cool scene that, anyways, but like that's, oh gosh, I don't even know if I'm like covering the tip of the iceberg for Noon's character, but
well, the good thing is we're going to talk about Noon a lot in this question,
right,
since she is the main character and the only perspective character. So technically, I mean, the character, this is supposed to just be the tip of the iceberg. So if you only cover the tip of the iceberg, you did exactly what you were supposed to do. Okay, let's see. Next character, I'll talk about Covey. Covey is she's the daughter of the town's corrupt and predatory harbormaster. I don't even remember his name, but it doesn't matter. Her dad's the evil antagonist. He's the harbormaster. He's in control of the town effectively. She starts out as seemingly an enemy to Noon and someone Noon doesn't like very much. But she does become an ally as they work together to try and figure out what's going on about these disappearances.
Jimmy, by the way.
What?
You asked what his name is. Her dad's name is Jimmy.
Jimmy, that's right, Jimmy. So they were trying to figure out what's going on. She originally gets sent with Noon because Jimmy, her dad, wants someone that he trusts to keeping an eye on Noon and her mom. I'm sure Barbara really enjoyed the enemies to lovers trope that we got with Noon and Covey. At least kind of hinted at. It wasn't like a full-blown romance or anything at the end, but you do root for that a little bit as they get closer and start to realize that they have a lot more in common than either of them, I think, thought at the beginning, as they go on this extremely creepy adventure. But
if you're reading this book for romance, don't, because
don't. That's why I said it's very Very
Like, that's
very
not even like
subtle.
the second part of what this novel's about. Like, I would say
Right.
that's
It's not.
maybe what are those drinks? The hint of a lime.
Oh, like the LaCroix and
Yeah,
stuff.
it's like a LaCroix, you know? Like, you're just gonna get a hint of something here. So, just an FYI.
I mean, you're accurate. I mean, in the actual book, there's hints at it, but it's not like full blown romance. I think you get more of it in that bonus chapter that was included in your version of the book. That's where you kind of get a little bit more of that. But anyway, Covey's a really interesting character. I really enjoyed her character and the character growth that we see with her. And then our last character we'll talk about here is Wilder. Do you want to do a little?
Yeah, Wilder is Noon's best friend. They grew up together. Their parents are really close. And at the beginning of the novel, he has run away. We don't know what happened to him. And come to find out that he actually did run away and then came back to the town and is hiding in this like billionaire's mansion with, I think they're dating with his girlfriend. I guess they never officially announced that they were together. I'm not sure.
It's kind of implied, I guess,
Implied,
but
yeah.
they never outright. I don't think he
Right.
outright says it.
Right. And then it's just like the other three, like Noon, Covey, Wilder are all dealing with the fact that their parents have expectations of them and they didn't meet those expectations, or at least in their mind, they didn't meet those expectations. So it's just, yeah, he's Noon's best friend. He kind of just left without, I guess, telling Noon anything. And then it's the whole found family trope. Like Noon, Covey, Wilder all like kind of get together and help each other out with generational trauma. And I really love the found family trope. This has it in spades and it's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
So
Absolutely. Okay, well, with the character discussion out of the way, let's jump into our discussion questions. The first one of those is, how does the novel explore the concept of monsters, both those in the water and those within the characters?
I mean, it's a great dichotomy because technically the actual monsters in the novel are these creatures that are literally shedding their skin to become more than what they are, like a pool of people instead of like an individual. It's like a community of these creatures that are essentially protecting the planet, but in what way you would say, like, it's detrimental to humans, but it's not detrimental to the planet. So it's kind of like, are they monsters? Because I mean, to humans, yes, because they are literally killing humans in the sense of like, they're not it's so hard to say, like, they're not killing them, like, they're not gone forever, like they're joining this community of like
Right.
soap stud type like creatures. I'm not even sure what to describe them, because like at one point they're like, they don't have skin, they're just like this goop of things that can like break off and do stuff and then come back together. And it stems from, I believe, the red algae and stuff like that. So I feel like it's kind of like the planet saying, F you, you've destroyed us enough, we're coming to get our planet back type thing. So those are like the quote unquote literal monsters, if you want to call it literal monster, you know? And as far as like within the characters, like you get the sense that all these characters maybe think that they are monsters, or Noon is literally turning into one of these creatures, but they're different in the sense that they still have control of themselves. But it's also, I feel like Jimmy is an actual, like, if you're going to put who's the monster, it's gonna be Jimmy and his little people, and and the person that assaulted Noon, like those are the actual monsters of the novel, like not the literal monster in the sense, like it's these humans who are selfish and disregard other people and nature and all these things for selfish reasons. And so it's a very interesting take on all of that. it's like the monster genre, but like flipped on its head type thing.
So this question was birthed out of a quote that I read in a review for this book when I was doing my research and preparing our notes. I'm just going to read that quote. They Bloom at Night explores the concept of monsters by subverting traditional ideas of what is monstrous. It argues that true monstrosity lies not in physical difference or in the mutated sea creatures, but in human cruelty, control, and unaddressed trauma.
Yep.
And that's like, yes,
that's such
amazing.
a beautiful quote.
Is it not? Right.
Are you going to give them...
Yeah, I will. It's the Gothic Library. Is where I found that. The blog is called the Gothic Library.
Well, there you go. That's literally, that's the best way to describe that.
But I think that it explores the concept. So the monsters in the water, I think, are absolutely they represent like the consequences of climate change, or like Barbara was saying, like Mother Earth fighting back. I think that's absolutely that. And on top of the fact that the book is set in a post-hurricane town in Louisiana, that really, I feel like, just drives that point home. It's the natural world trying to take things back from people that have wrecked things. As far as like the monsters within, I think that's talking about the fact that Noon feels like a monster because of this literal physical transformation into a sea creature or a hybrid sea creature. But I think that also is mirroring her existing discomfort with her assigned gender identity, and that she, I think, sees herself as a monster because of that too, even though she absolutely shouldn't. There was a quote from the book that I wrote down also. It's, "Monsterhood is a girl's body you don't belong in." Yeah. That was really, really good. I highlighted that when I was reading it. So I think that's part of it also. And then also it's her transforming into a monster is part of her like reclaiming agency and control over her own life in a world and in her life where she feels like she's lost all of that for one reason or another. So I think that's part of it also. And then, like I said earlier, like the person who wrote that beautiful review said earlier, I think the true monster in this book is the human monsters. So it's Jimmy. It's the guy who assaulted Noon when she was younger. In the same way that, like The Walking Dead, you learn after like the first season, the real monsters are people and the zombies are not the real problem here. That's kind of how this book is also. Like the real monsters are the people and the humans that have done these terrible things. Let's see. Moving on to our next question. Do you see They Bloom at Night as a climate change story, given its post-apocalyptic setting and themes? I think I kind of answered this a little bit inadvertently in the answer to my last question, but yes, I think that it absolutely is a story about climate change. I think the monsters effectively represent climate change. The fact that it's set in a near future area or setting, where a hurricane has devastated Louisiana. We know that hurricanes, even doing that amount of damage to Louisiana, is a direct result of climate change. We've learned that from science, for those of you that believe science. And so I think that it's not even implied, it's explicitly a climate change story. I think that is a large theme in this book.
Yeah, I think it's definitely one of the themes of the novel is the fact that climate change. So yeah, 100%. It's an interesting take on that, and I don't think it's a very preachy one, because I know certain people get a little upset when books do themes where they kind of just shove it in your face and they don't like that. I don't think this book does that at all. I think it's a interesting way of actually showing that, of saying like, hey, if we screw this up so badly, like literal monsters are gonna come and take it back, and I'm all for that. Like it's I definitely don't think it's a preachy way of the novel doing that. It's just like, hey, there's consequences, this is one of the consequences, which I don't know much about this, but I feel like it is actually rooted in something that could potentially happen, because of it's the algae that has a symbiotic relationship with the host, and the hosts are humans, and it transforms humans, well, in the environment too, like the fish, the nautical life and everything around it. And like I said, it's not the death of humans, but it is the death of humans. It's just, if you see it, that's it's a new version of what humans could be in this symbiotic relationship with these others.
Yep. Yeah, I think that this book really highlights, at least from my point of view, has always been when people say like, "Oh, you're destroying the planet." It's like, no, we're not destroying the planet. Like the planet is going to be fine unless you literally like nuke the core. The planet's going to be fine. We're making it inhospitable for us. The planet will live. Humans may not. But if we continue on this trajectory
we
of
are
climate
making
change,
it inhospitable for other creatures that have been here before us.
but I'm saying it wouldn't be the first time there was a massive extinction event that
Yeah.
Mother Nature or Earth reset. Moving on to our next question. How did Noon's relationship with Covey evolve, and what does their interaction reveal about trauma, consent, and hope?
So originally, Noon judged Covey and just assumed Covey was an extension of Jimmy because they are father and daughter. And so she just assumed, hey, Covey's just as bad as Jimmy. This is why she's here. And once they actually start talking to each other, Covey's only doing this to find her mom and run away with her mom, because that was the whole point. It was Covey and her mom were supposed to get away from Jimmy because she is not a fan of her dad. She actually absolutely hates her dad. And then they start kind of talking to each other about what they experienced, Noon's trauma with what she had, and then just the expectations of her family versus Covey's with the expectation of having a father like that who is so overbearing to the point where, I mean, in a roundabout way, he did kill the mom. Like, he was extremely jealous, thought she was cheating, when all she wanted to do was get away from him. So, what does it reveal about trauma, consent, and hope? I mean, I feel like they kind of learn from each other. Like, they're both, it seemed like they were both very closed off individuals. They didn't really have anyone else. Like, Noon had, I guess, Wilder, and then they grew up and people started shipping them together as weird adults do when you're children. Which, can we, like, I'm gonna get on a soapbox. Like, why do we do that as adults? Like, oh, they're so cute together. Like, you're 6. Like, what is happening in society that this is a thing? Like, we need to stop that immediately, because 100% that happens. Is like, you're best friends, and then also when someone starts saying, oh, you guys would look so cute as a couple, like, we're 8. We're, 10. Like, that's not a thing. And then they kind of got weird around each other, as it happens. So, yeah, Noon didn't have it. And then, like, Covey clearly didn't, I don't think, have anyone to really, like, talk about all of this stuff. And then they just kind of talked to each other and then started relying on each other. And it is just, like, their friendship evolving into, like, they actually understood where they were each coming from and, like, what happened to each other, and having these expectations of both their parents and just breaking out of that. Like, Noon even says, like, she wished she had a mother-daughter relationship of how Covey had with her mom. But then you see that, like, Noon's mom was trying to be the mom that she thought she needed. And it's one of those things where it's like, that doesn't excuse all the stuff her mom did to her. But you understand, like, okay, like, they talked and now we can go and try to heal that trauma that happened to them. And it's definitely, like, a hopeful ending. Oh, yeah.
So I'm not going to talk a lot about the evolution, because I feel like Barbara covered the evolution of their relationship beautifully. So I'll just talk about my thoughts on the themes of trauma, consent, and hope. Obviously, both characters are dealing with significant personal trauma. So, we already talked about how Noon is dealing with the past sexual assault. Covey was abused by her dad pretty much her entire life. And I think that they start to see similarities in each other and find that they're not as different as they thought at the beginning, when their relationship was initially very antagonistic. Consent, this world is very much about control and coercion and not about consent. And so their relationship, I think, is, you see, like, they make a conscious effort to practice consent and respect boundaries and set those boundaries as well. There was a quote, they relearn boundaries and consent after witnessing these concepts be violated in their own lives. And so we see them doing that, and I think that is what leads to then the hope, hope of hope of something more than just survival in this world where that's really all they've known is just doing what it takes to survive, and finding yourself along the way, and providing courage to embrace yourself. I think that through their relationship, they learn ways to also accept and love themselves, if that makes sense. Like, not just finding each other in this new friendship, relationship, whatever it might be, but also through that learning, finding hope, and then learning to love themselves again too. Let's see. Next question. In what ways do characters like Noon and her mother deal with the trauma of loss? And what does the book convey about the different ways that grief manifests? Okay, so obviously these two characters deal with this trauma of loss entirely differently. So Noon's mother is all about surviving and denial. So she's coping with this grief of losing her husband and son and everything else by effectively just putting herself fully into survival, putting herself fully into her daughter, and just pushing everything else to the side, and avoiding by denying that that's happening. Or in her case, I believe she was also hoping that they were reincarnated as these sea monsters, and so there's some chance that she might see them again. But throughout the book, we see her actively avoid talking about the loss of her family, which drives a wedge inadvertently, I think, between her and her daughter, because Noon is trying to, so let me talk about Noon's coping mechanism. Is she's internalizing all of this stuff, and then we're seeing some transformation. But when Noon starts to kind of come out of the internalization and try to talk to her mom, we see her mom kind of shut that down because she doesn't want to talk about this stuff. And Noon has always internalized her pain and all of her trauma and shoved that deep down into herself. And so in some ways we see the result of all of that pain being shoved down, blooming, and then turning into something that we weren't expecting to see in the book. As far as the ways that grief manifests, that's interesting. I think that it highlights the idea that there isn't a single cookie cutter way to deal with grief, because we see all these different characters who are all grieving something. I think even Jimmy, the antagonist of the book, if we were to get like a short story or even a chapter from his perspective, I think some of his internal monologue would be grieving the loss of his wife, even though he's the one that pushed her away, right? And so I think that's one thing there, is that grief manifests differently for everybody, and everybody deals with that grief differently.
Yeah, I think obviously Noon and her mother deal with trauma of loss very differently. The mom, I feel like, is very stereotypical. Maybe like, if we don't talk about it, it didn't happen. And she kind of does that with everything, and she also is, I feel like, in a bit in denial because of what happened to Noon. Like, she prayed for Song to help Noon, and that worked. And so when she lost her husband and son, she kept praying to Song and hoping that Song would bring them back in the way that Song brought Noon back. Because of that, she's so, like, what is the word? Like, hyper focused on getting her husband and son back in whatever form that may be, that she inadvertently ignores the pain that Noon is going through. Like, they both lost a dad and a brother / son, and instead of her taking a step back and being like, okay, now I have to be here for both me and my daughter, it was just like, we need to get them back. And I feel like that showed to Noon, like, she was not good enough for her mom. Like, like, I am all that you have left now. Why is it so important that you find them again? Like, instead of focusing on the present, it was more of the past in the sense of the dad and the son, and then the future of what that would look like if she got them back. And also Noon always explains the fact of like what happened to her. Like her mom was just like, oh, cover it up, like let's dye your hair so it doesn't look bleached white and it's back to the normal color. Let's pretend it didn't happen, so let's put these clothes, these baggy clothes on you and all this stuff. And to Noon, that looks like she was ashamed of her and what happened to her, and how can she be so stupid to let a guy convince her to go to this place, blah, 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 blah. All these things that we as women tell ourselves when this happens to us, versus Noon later comes to find out like that was her mom's way of trying to deal with that fact. It wasn't that she was embarrassed by her. She was just being like, this is how I know how to deal with this. It's not correct, obviously, like I think the biggest misconception when you are a kid or a young adult that you have about adults and your parents are the fact that you think adults know everything. You think they have life figured out, and then when you are an adult, you come to find out that that is not the case. That a lot of these adults are just like us. They're broken little toys who never learned how to deal with things, and they're just hiding it better than how kids and young adults do. And that's what we learn as adults. It's not how to deal with the trauma, it's how to bury the trauma. And I think that's what you're seeing here is like Noon realizing like, my mom is dealing with this not in the right way, but the best way that she thought she could. And let's finally have this conversation to like start the healing process. Obviously, it's not like you talk about it and you flip a switch and everyone's okay. Like that's not how healing works. It's going to be a thing that you're going to be working on for the rest of your life, As far as like how the book conveys about different ways of grief manifests, like all of the characters, really, like all of the main characters that you get is how you see how people grieve in different ways and how it looks like Noon literally, like Michael said, like buried it to the point where then it started manifesting physically, in how they were turning into this otherworldly creature. And then for the other characters too, you just see like for Wilder, like how his parents or I think it's mostly his dad didn't accept who he was. And instead of that, they, pushed him to the point where he ran away. And then you see them still staying in this town, waiting for their son with the hopes that he would come back. And it's like, I feel like I can get on this whole soap opera. Like if you just loved your kid for who they were, maybe this wouldn't have happened type thing. But It's like, clearly
there's that line where Noon's talking to the dad and she says like, how does it feel knowing that you're asking these questions all because you didn't like your son wore eyeliner?
Right.
So I'm paraphrasing. It wasn't exactly
right.
Like,
and it's just
that was just like, holy crap.
Right. It's just this, it's this whole thing. But anyways, that's my answer, I guess.
That was a good answer. Let's see. Next question. Noon experiences gender dysphoria throughout the book. How does this connect to the story's body horror elements?
Oh, man, I want to preface this with the fact that I feel like I have I shouldn't say zero experience. I feel like this is a very sensitive topic. I'm going to try my best, I guess, to answer this in my experiences, I guess, or my point of view. Obviously, this is like such a broad thing to talk about. It's literally like the manifestation of it, like this feeling that you get that your body is supposed to be like your safe haven, but when you're going through these changes and it doesn't feel right to you, like what does that, to an outsider looking in, like to them you look quote unquote normal or fine or whatever the adjective, adverbs, whatever you want to describe it as, but like to you yourself, that's not what you're experiencing. Like how do you say that? How do you say like this thing that's supposed to be like my solace isn't giving me that, isn't showing that, and then this body, this book does it in the sense of a literal transformation, like Noon is literally turning into one of these things. Like, she's getting gills, her hair has turned from the normal color to like white, to her eyes, her pupils, and all this stuff. Like, she used to need glasses and then she doesn't, like all of this stuff. And I feel like it's just if you were to describe what that feels like, this is it. It's literally like your body transforming into what you see it physically outside of it. And like the last piece was literally Noon, like literally shedding her skin, like she takes it and peels it off. And like, as someone who doesn't mind horror at all or anything like that, but the description of that, because it's like, you've gotten hangnails before, you've gotten these little parts of your skin where you just want to peel it, as someone who struggles with not peeling and poking and prodding themselves, like, I'm just talking about it is making me in a cold sweat, because like I'm literally visualizing like they take it and just like start and just literally peel off your skin. And it's funny, like I remember as a kid, like my mom would be like, stop poking at your, like stop doing that, like you're gonna peel your skin off. And it's literally what's happening here. And so it's like this like visceral reaction of like, oh my gosh, wow, this is intense, but like the way the author did that is just such a, I couldn't have described it better, of like, that is what it feels like, that is what it looks like in the grand scheme of it. And finally Noon feels comfortable in their own skin. To quote Twilight, the skin of a monster, Bella. That's a joke, by the way. Obviously they're not a monster. I mean,
right. I know what you meant.
Yeah.
I will say, just real quickly before I answer this question, I will say that I think through reading this book with you, Barbara, and watching the movie The Substance with you, I've learned that the horror that actually gets to you is body horror.
Body horror, yes.
Because that movie also really, like,
like jump scares, that kind of blood, that stuff never. And this is not that it bothers me. It's just this is the thing that like I get that reaction, I think, is what you're wanting to get. I get that reaction with these types of stuff just because I am like, I can visually see it. So in my head, I'm literally watching her peel. And as someone who has a medical background, like, what's happening. And to get that, like, yeah, you actually can peel someone's skin off. This is what it looks like, and it's described very well.
So to answer this question, I think that this book uses body horror, like Barbara said, as a metaphor to externalize Noon's internal struggle with her gender identity. I think that the body horror is meant to be the external manifestation of that. And I think, at least from my understanding, which is also rudimentary on this, I think that it does a good job doing that. I had an idea and I lost it. There was the quote that I said earlier that I think still plays in with this, which is, the monsterhood is a girl's body you don't belong in. And that's, this whole story is the physical changes turning her into, at least in her mind, a monster. And she sees herself as more and more of a monster. And there's this absolutely heartbreaking line at one point in the middle of the book where she describes herself as jailbait since puberty, monster since ruined. And it's just like, ugh, no. There are actually a lot of like really heartbreaking. There are a lot of things that I highlighted in this book that were just like, oh my God, my soul. And it's the horror is not just the external threat of the sea. It's this, her feeling this profound discomfort being in a body that she feels violated and misaligned with everything that she knows to be true about herself. But like Barbara said, at the end, that transforms into this beautiful thing of self-acceptance and transformation, where this monstrous transformation is allowing her to shed not just her literal skin, as Barbara described, but also shed society's expectations on her and gain the strength to be herself and to fight back and to turn this source of fear into self-acceptance and empowerment. And that was, I think, the real beauty at the end of this story, is that she liberates herself at the end through through this monstrous, quote unquote, monstrous transformation. Let's see. Next story. Next question. What do you think about the way the story handles the theme of survival versus the yearning for something more than just survival? Um, Gosh, I mean, I think it's a complex thing, and it handles both, I guess. So at the beginning of the story, we're seeing pretty much exclusively these characters deal with survival. That's Noon's mom's baseline. That's her whole thing. They are just trying to survive, because if they're not just trying to survive, then that means she has to deal with the trauma and the grief and the things that happened to her. So she's single-mindedly focused on daily tasks to survive, cooking, hunting, getting the things that she needs to, keep her and her daughter safe. And in her mind, when existing and surviving day to day is the priority, there is no time for anything else. There's no time for yearning for anything more. And so then when we see Noon and Covey on this journey together to try to find they're hunting this monster, we see that they start to both, I think, yearn for something more around the same time. And some of that is through their relationship together, which is a healthy and consensual romance slash friendship slash relationship that they have. And I think once that starts to bloom a little bit, both just in the friendship aspect first before it becomes anything else, that lets them both start to yearn for more and start to want other things, like intimacy and emotional connection, and not just thinking about, baseline, do I have enough food to live today? The stuff that they've been dealing with all along. And I think the takeaway for that the counterbalance between survival and yearning for something beyond survival is that hope is not just something, it's a necessity. Like you have to have a little bit of hope. You have to have a little bit of optimism to continue pushing forward and eventually, get to that point where you're able to reject just existing and focus on something more than just that.
Yeah, I think we see both Noon and Covey at the beginning of the book. They're literally just surviving, like Michael mentioned. For Noon, it's just her and her mom barely scraping by, not leaving this place because the mom doesn't want to abandon, potentially the dad and the brother, and stay in these like horrible conditions and all this stuff, just with the hope that maybe they can get reunited. And so at this point, they're just scraping by, just surviving. With Noon, you know that she wants more. Like she wants more than this life that they're currently doing, because she's like, this isn't living at this point. This is like just, we're barely surviving, and I want more out of this. And that's why her game plan is just like, take her mom, the boat, and get the F out of Dodge here. And then with Covey, it's the same. Like her and her mom were just surviving with Jimmy and his pressures and all of how obviously he was an abusive man to both her and her mom, and like their game plan was also to do the same. As like, let's just escape him, and then we can finally start living the life instead of just barely surviving here with this person that encroaching on our life and all this stuff. And so it's like you see that and how they're both grappling with that, and then you get that at the end, the it's like holding your breath without, and I hate like that cliche. I hate when people actually write that in the novel. It's like, oh, she let the breath out that she didn't know she wasn't holding. Like you do realize that you're holding that breath, that, but it's like how your body just tenses in fight or flight, and your whole body the whole time of survival is just tensed up. And then when you can finally just like let that go and it just relaxes, it's like that feeling of like, okay, now you can start learning how to live again. It's the whole like pyramid of needs, like the bare minimum here is just survival, and then once that is met, you can get the other stuff, like you can start doing the whole dealing, like with a lot of people that don't do it. It's like if you're just barely scraping by surviving, Like, you're not dealing with the trauma, you're not dealing with the mental health, because everyone thinks like your physical body's the most important, but like it's a nice, beautiful balance. You have to treat the mental and the physical body the same. You can't just be like, oh, all physical were great, when you're like disregarding the mental, because clearly that's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And so you see that where they're like, the baseline for them is like just surviving, and then finally you get towards the end, it's like, okay, now we can breathe, now we can start the healing process.
I think that was a great description there at the end. Let's see. Next question. What is the significance of the red algae bloom, and how does it relate to the story's exploration of survival and transformation?
I mean, literally, the red algae bloom is literally what is causing these biological changes in the creatures, the marine life, even the environment, like the plants and the humans too. That's that, like I explained a little bit earlier. It's like this symbiotic relationship that the red algae has with whatever the host is, and then it transforms them into this other thing to survive this crazy town that happened after the whole, like unlivable, unhospitable like environment that they're in. This red algae is like, well, I got you, fam. We're gonna survive this. You might sprout some tentacles and some gills, but we got you.
But we'll get there.
We'll get there. And scientifically speaking, like, this is such a cool look into it. Like that's the whole basis of it, right? Like with Noon, like that's what happened to her. Like, her mom prayed to Song and was like, help my daughter, like, after this traumatic thing happened to her. And then like Song was like, I got you, she's going to survive, we're going to transform them into something different. And that's like the red algae is doing that in this city of like, it's so not defeated, but like it's it's hurting, the city is hurting, and this red algae comes in and is like, let's transform you into these things that can survive this this inhospitable environment that we've been placed in. And it pretty much is like they describe like this symbiotic relationship of like, we need a host, you're the host, now we'll transform you into something that can survive so we can survive.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you really hit the nail on the head with that answer for this one. So I'm not going to add a whole lot more. In essence, the red algae bloom is this physical and symbolic force that is at the same time a representation of climate change and humans' devastating impact on the world. And at the same time is this symbolic force that forces these characters to stop surviving and start truly transforming into to create a life that's worth living, and to yearn for more. All right, next question. What do you think the author hopes readers will take away from the book's blend of hope and horror? That's a good question. I think that it's hard to say what we think the author hopes readers take away, but what I hope that readers take away from this, if they read the book, is a lot of what Barbara and I are talking about. That, it's not, well, number one, climate change is real, and it's a bad thing. I hope they take that away from it. But I hope they also take away and learn about body and gender dysphoria, like we have reading this and doing some research outside of it. I hope that they do that. I hope that they also take away that you should yearn for more than survival. I hope they take away that, this truly horrible thing that's happening right now will lead, or you think it's horrible now, maybe it will lead to something that's even better and more transformative. I think the main message I hope that they take away is that it's important to try, when you are at your most hopeless, to try to find hope.
I don't know what the author hopes readers will take, because I am not the author. I don't know that. I feel like if I guess I can just say what I think, but like I said, I've always have not been good at answering these types of questions, because I have no idea what they expect. Like, obviously they write stuff. Maybe they expect something completely different than what I took away from the novel, but I think that's the beauty of books, is you get what understand from it, and hopefully you understand you get the takeaway from it. Obviously, not everyone has reading comprehension for that, but like that's why we should be reading more. But as far as that, I think it's just that, man, I honestly, I don't know how to answer this.
It's tough. I mean,
I don't. Maybe just that you're not alone in feeling this way. That it's not just a singular feeling, that a lot of us feel this way. A lot of us are dealing with these things, and maybe in writing this down, they hope that we're not feeling so lonely with our thoughts and our feelings and our aspirations and our hopes and our horrors, and that maybe we can find that hope in reading something like this. That, yes, like obviously it's a book, and as far as I'm aware, we don't have these types of monsters in our society. Who's to know? Well, we do have the humans in our societies, but I meant the literal,
Barbara, we talked about
the literal monsters, not
No,
the actual monsters. But like, we don't have red algae taking over the world just yet. Not yet. We might, and transforming creatures and humans into better things. But that these experiences, there's probably at least one other person going through that, and taking away the fact that maybe that you can get through that too, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. All right, that's good. I like that. All right, we've made it to the final question. The ending of this book is very ambiguous. What does this in-betweenness communicate about Noon's journey and the future?
So I think this is my problem, and I'm going to preface this with the fact that I have to sit with the ending, because the ending is ambiguous, because this isn't a happy it's not a happy ending. It's not a happy, like, oh, and we all are okay at the end. And honestly, that's real life, like, you don't get like, oh, we killed the dragon and the world is saved. Like, realistically, that's not how our society is. It's not how our world is, like, we keep on living, we keep on getting disappointed, we keep on having things that smack us down, and we have to keep on getting up and all this stuff. Like, it's a realistic ending. My problem with that is, I'm just going to say this, with everything that's going on in the world, I feel like I just wanted the characters to be happy. And obviously they are happy. I'm not saying they're not. It's just like, it's, that Noon isn't long for what this means to be with their friends. It's like, she's not dying, but like, she made a deal with Song, and she has to hold up her end of the bargain, whatever that means. Like, she's going back to like the sea or the water and stuff like that. And so that means like, what you see her as a corporeal form isn't probably going to be there, and that makes me sad because I want Noon to have the world. They deserve it. And so I think it's just me being unrealistic and me wanting a happy ending, and what your stereotypical happy ending is for characters. But like I said, like, that's unrealistic, and I completely get that. As far as like, what does that say? Like, I mean, I think Noon made, what is the word we're looking for? They made that deal already knowing that, like, they're content with that fact. They finally feel comfortable in who they are and in their skin, and they're no longer like feeling that pressure. And so like, you can just see that they're content with the choices that they have made to save their loved ones in the town that they love begrudgingly, and to give their loved ones a chance to actually like thrive instead of just survive. And that's an extremely happy ending for that. But like, I want them to also have that. So I don't know. Obviously, I'm feeling a certain kind of way about the ending.
So before I talk about the ending, I have to say, you've said like 3 times through this podcast some variation of "you got to keep on living," and I keep hearing Matthew McConaughey every time you say it. That line from his famous quote from Dazed and Confused: "That you just got to keep on living, baby." Livin.
I've
You've never
never
Dazed and
seen
Confused?
that. No,
Okay.
I
Well,
have not. So.
I think it actually might be his very first movie. But anyway.
Okay.
So the ending is absolutely ambiguous, and I think for this story, it has to be, because it shows that the growth and healing that go into this transformation that we're seeing are ongoing processes or journeys, not a destination. And so I think that, honestly, I would have probably given this book a really low score if it had ended with like this like neatly tied, like they saved the environment and the world, and Noon and everyone they're feeling perfectly like themselves and everything's great. And so I think it's important that it highlights that everything going on is an ongoing journey, and it makes the world feel a little bit more real to have kind of an ambiguous ending also. But I do think that with all of that said, the ending that we get, it still leaves you with a lot of hope for the future, which I think is one of the overarching themes in this book, is trying to find that hope. And I think that Noon finally finds that hope through her found family. So through Covey and through Wilder, and in that way, that the future isn't about rescuing society, but it's about the strong, healthy relationships that she's forged with these people that are her found family, and that maybe the secret to something more than just survival isn't saving the world, but it's about building that found family and building a community, and then figuring out how to thrive together in a broken world. And I think that's where it really leaves us, with this hope for more than just survival. And I really liked that. It's kind of sad, but I also really liked that. This is a pretty heavy book, so let's be honest. It was not I mentioned it was an easy read earlier, and I think I need to clarify that it was an easy read in the sense that it was easy to get through because it was short, and I really liked the story, and so I felt like I was flying through it. It is not an easy read from a thematic perspective. It is a very heavy book. It is a very good story, and I really still highly recommend it, but I felt like I needed to make that little addendum. Well, Barbara, we made it to the end of another podcast. Should we tell them our individual scores?
No.
No? Okay. Well, let's just wrap it up then. So I'm just kidding. What's your individual score for the book?
I gave it an 8 out of 10. An 8.
An 8 out of 10. I gave it a 7 out of 10. So our group score for this one was obviously, as I said before, a 7.5 out of 10. Like always, make sure you're following Badass Literature for free in your favorite podcast app. Please give us a rating and leave us a review if they allow you to. Super helpful for us, get a little bit of feedback, and it helps our podcast and our show get noticed. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media. Our handle is Badass Lit Pod on both Instagram, Facebook, and now Goodreads. I'm working on getting us a Fable account set up too. So if you're on Fable, I know we've been talking about Fable a little bit. We'll be there too. We'll be there too shortly. Whew, that was hard to get out for some reason. Barbara, bring us home.
Have feedback about today's episode? You can contact us by writing to badassliteraturesociety@gmail.com. You can also send us a DM or leave a comment on any of our social media handles.
As always, thank you so much for listening. I'm Michael.
I'm Barbara.
Bye.
Bye.
See you next time.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.